Hello, Aubrey. How's it going?
I'm great. How are you, Lindsay?
Aubrey, I'm feeling good today, but I do have a question to open the show.
All right, here we go.
So, what is a bad habit? Do you have any bad habits when it comes to conversation?
Oh, yes. This is something that happened recently. It actually happens all the time to me. I really need to fix this bad habit.
Oh, no.
What I do is I just get ahead of myself. And sometimes before someone is done speaking, or even sometimes before they say anything, with the way the conversation is going, I'll sort of assume I know what they're going to say and I'll react, usually just with like sort of a laugh that
Yeah.
and then sometimes they'll say what they're going to say and it's not something funny, it's not a joke, and I'm like, oh, sorry, I thought you were going to say something else, and then I create
Oh.
this awkward situation just because I'm getting ahead of myself.
Oh my gosh, it's so awkward. But this sounds honestly very human. Why do you think you do that? Is it because you're impatient? Is it because you want that moment of connection faster, like with the laugh? Why do you think that is?
It's probably part of its impatience. I
Mhm.
do have a tendency to be thinking of like what I want to do next or say next. And I know that also is a bad habit. Like I need to slow down and
Right.
actually really listen to what someone's saying, even in a very informal situation, right? I still
Yeah.
need to like give people a chance to be heard and listen instead of jumping ahead, right? And I
Yeah.
also, it very related, I will cut people off or talk over people and I recognize it and
Uh,
I interrupt far too often. It's part of its
yeah.
impatience or excited for what's happening next. I just need to slow down a
Yeah.
little
We're
bit.
all guilty of it. It's okay, Aubrey. I've been accused of that at home as well, kinda
Mm.
cutting off and taking the conversation, like having an objection too quickly before I hear the person's points, right? It's not
Yes.
fair. But it's hard these days, even in
Yeah.
conversation when you're not interrupting, you're rushing to the laugh or almost receiving the punchline before it's there, right?
Yes.
It's mindfulness, right? It's hard for us to be mindful. There's just
Yes.
so much
And
going on.
I know it
Yeah.
is a very common marker of speech right now because I actually just read an article about the TV show Succession where they were being praised for their script and the directing because they're talking over each other and interrupting each other so much, which feels so much like real speech. And most TV shows and movies don't do that. And I didn't even think about
Really?
it. They
That's
usually kind of one person says
interesting.
something and the next, but it feels so real the way they kind of talk over each other and interrupt
Ooh,
each other.
I feel like that
Interesting.
would be just a side point, that would be great material for our listeners to check
Yes,
out, to
absolutely.
get
I
that
recommend
real
it. Have you
con
not seen Succession, Lindsay?
I have not, I have not. I'm
It's
not
sort
on
of a
the
dark
train.
comedy. It's like a big media company, kind of like Fox News, but that's
Mhm.
owned by a very corrupt family.
Oh
And,
gosh,
there's a lot of it's excellent acting and directing. It probably will be nominated for all kinds of Emmys. I have
interesting.
loved it. I know a lot of people who love it, but it might not be for everyone. It is a little dark. It's a little heavy.
Well, our listeners can check that out if they
Yes.
want to. I love it. So I'm excited to get into this topic today of rushing to the end.
Mhm.
What can you say when you get caught in that? But are there any related episodes, Aubrey, that our listeners should know about first?
Absolutely. You and Michelle recently recorded episode 1998. It was called Missed the Joke, What to Say in English. And that's what's
Mhm.
inspired this episode when I was getting keywords for the app, which if you
Yeah.
guys don't have it, go to allersenglish.com/app app because
Mhm.
I choose the high level keywords. And when I was picking those, I was listening and you guys were talking about when it's awkward if something that you're not supposed to understand, you like laugh or kind of go along with the joke like you were saying you do. And then it
Yep.
creates this awkward moment because everyone knows you shouldn't have laughed. You shouldn't have understood the joke, right?
Right,
And so I was
right.
thinking, and this is very similar to an experience I had recently. So I'm like, oh, we need to teach the language for that. What do you do if you create that awkward situation? What can you say?
I love how specific this situation is. It is exactly what our listeners need, guys, right? And this is also a situation I could imagine our listeners might end up in, right? If we just want to be able to kind of play along with the crowd,
Yeah.
we can't always raise our hand and say, I didn't get it, right? If in
No.
terms of the language, if you didn't quite get it, right? So you may be in this situation Potentially more often. So let's get into it then, Aubrey. Do we have 3 tips today for this kind of
Yes.
scenario? Okay.
Exactly, right? So just sort of to give you a little bit of overview, we're talking about what you can say if you mishear someone and accidentally react inappropriately, or if your laughter causes awkwardness. So we'll give you 3 sort of scenarios
Okay.
and what you can say if you find yourself in that scenario, right?
All right, this is good. So let's just dive right into it. Let's just get into it, Aubrey. What would be the first scenario? What should we do if our laughter creates awkwardness? That's the
Yes,
first one.
right?
Mhm.
If you laugh and then there's an awkward silence because maybe you didn't understand something or you weren't in on a joke and everyone there knows, like you shouldn't be laughing
Yeah.
for whatever reason, right? You're going to need something to say to dispel that awkwardness, right? Because if we just say something, admit it, whatever, there are so many ways, then everyone will just laugh. The conversation moves on. But if you awkwardly just kind of look like it can, the awkwardness can linger. So
It
we want
can
to
linger.
give you phrases to dispel it. What could we say, Lindsay?
Yeah, okay, so the first thing we can say is, "Okay, you'll have to explain it to me. I was just laughing, so you didn't have to stop and explain the joke." Right? We're kind of backtracking
Exactly.
here. It's
Yes, and
very
this is
awkward.
totally something I have absolutely said this, right? If there's awkwardness, I'll be like, "Okay, all right, you caught me. I laughed. You'll have to explain it to me." And then I'll even say that, right? "I was just laughing so you didn't have to stop and explain the joke." Because you guys are
Yes.
not alone in English if you're like not wanting to stop the conversation and ask them to explain all the time. This happens to native speakers as well. If someone's making a movie reference or talking about something that happened last week, it happens to everyone.
Oh, it happens to me all the time. It's hard to know, right? In that moment, you're not sure, am I missing a cultural or a political reference I should know? Or is it actually just an inside joke that I don't need to worry about knowing, right? And then
Exactly.
how do you make that decision in your mind? Most of the time, as human beings, our human brains are gonna say, "Let's stay safe," and just laugh
Mhm.
along with the crowd,
Yep,
right? Yep.
absolutely, and we have something else you can say. You could say, "Okay, wait, I feel like I'm missing something. What happened?" Or
Mhm.
a really native thing you can say is, "Fill me in," which means, like, "Catch me up.
Yes.
Fill me in on the joke," right?
I
Say,
love that
"Okay,
one.
wait, you need to fill me in."
Yes, I love it. I love it. And is there another scenario, like a sub scenario here, Aubrey?
Yes, absolutely, right? If someone asks you something that makes it, because a lot of times you're in this situation and they're just going to continue the conversation. They're not going to, there might even be a little tiny awkward pause, but then someone's going to just pick it up and keep going and you might not have to say anything. But sometimes, and we'll show this in the role play later, sometimes
Mhm.
someone will point it out. They'll say
Oh,
something that makes it obvious you just laugh to be polite, right? Or maybe they'll just assume you got the joke and they'll be like, "Oh, didn't you love that scene? Didn't you love that movie?" And then you're sort of caught. And you're like, "Now I don't wanna lie and be like, 'Yes, I loved that movie.' What can you
yeah.
say instead?"
Right. Okay. So here we go. This is one thing you could say. You could say, "No, I didn't see that. What happened?" Right? That's specifically when someone asks you about that scene
Mhm.
or that movie itself, right?
Exactly. Or if it's a little more general, you can say, "No, I'm not familiar with that. What happened or what's that about?"
Right. I feel like with the first scenario though, if someone knows that you're not in on the joke, an inside joke situation, and they point out that you just laugh, that's just mean. Like that's just straight up rude.
It can
It's a
that
mean
can it
person.
can be, like, maybe they're trying to be funny or whatever, like, most cases, I feel like people, so what's gonna happen in role play, you'll see this in a second, guys, is more like if you laugh at something, which makes it seem like you understood the joke, and so they think you did, and then they're like, "Oh, didn't you love that when that
Yeah,
happened?" That's
that's
going
more.
that's gonna be a lot more common, right? And then you're like, "Oh, no, I was
Yeah.
just laughing, I didn't
For sure.
understand."
It's gonna be less common that someone knows there's an inside joke, they know you weren't there, so you shouldn't be laughing and they call
Right.
you out, right? That would be
That's a
just
lot
kinda
less,
mean-spirited.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely,
yeah.
and you could maybe just push back and be like, "Okay, rude. I was just
Yeah,
trying not to make you stop and explain to me. Maybe you shouldn't be telling inside jokes that I don't know,
exactly,
that I'm not in on."
exactly. I love that. That would be my comeback. That's a
Yeah,
good one.
for sure.
Okay, so we've gotten through number 1, that situation. There's also something else, Aubrey, that could happen, which is that you misheard something,
Yes,
right? Tell us about
exactly.
this one.
This
Mhm,
happened to me last weekend. My friend was saying something, and I thought he was making a joke, and this was that bad habit I was telling you about where I
mhm.
sort of think I know what someone's gonna say, and I'm jumping ahead, and so I laughed, assuming it was a
Yeah.
joke, and then he sort of finished what he was saying, and I realized he had said, "This is my boyfriend, Gustavo." And I had laughed. And I was like, "Oh, oh no, this is terrible." So I can't just say nothing. I need to make it clear that I misheard, right? I misunderstood.
Yes.
So we need language for that as well.
Yes. Okay. So here's what you can say, guys. Write this down. You could say, "Oh, sorry, I misheard you." Right? And you can make it clear in your tone of voice as well. "Oh, sorry, I
Absolutely.
misheard you." You can show your sense of caring in your voice there. And you can
Exactly, and
take
that's
care of the
exactly what
person.
I said, right? I was like, "Oh, sorry, I misheard you. Nice to meet you, Gustavo," right? And then
Yeah.
you don't need to, like, leave this weird pause or make them react to what you're saying. You just
Yeah.
move on with the conversation.
Right. Exactly. And what would be the second thing you could say, Aubrey?
Yeah, you can say, "Oh, my bad. I thought you were saying something else." Or
Yeah.
even, "I thought you were going to say something else." Because in this situation where I sort of started laughing before he was even done with his statement, that would be appropriate. Be like, "Oh, I thought you were gonna make a joke. I thought you were gonna say something else."
Yeah. Which of these, just to compare these two phrases for our super high level listeners, no, which one is more kind of casual? Which is more serious?
Mm. The "I misheard you. Oh, sorry, I
Mhm.
misheard you" is a little more formal. This would be
Yeah.
perfect for at work. If you mishear someone, this is, it's not super overly formal. That's what I was at sand volleyball, and this is what I said, but it
Yeah.
also is super appropriate for any formal situation as well.
Yeah, it's maybe just for maybe potentially for a mistake that could have offended someone more, right?
Yes,
More so than
good
my
point.
bad. My bad is kinda light. It's
That's
light on your
true.
feet,
A little more
right?
flippant, right?
Yeah,
That word
flippant.
means you're
That's the
sort of
word.
almost dismissing that it was a problem, and I didn't wanna be flippant in that situation
Yes.
because I had sort of
Yes.
created a situation where I potentially could offend someone, and I felt badly, and so I
Yes.
didn't wanna be flippant and say, "My bad, thought you were saying something else."
That is such a good bonus word for today, by the way, Aubrey. Flippant. I love
Yes,
it. That's
right?
a
That'll
really good
definitely be
one.
in the app, guys.
Yes, love it. All right, do we have a role play for today?
Yes, absolutely. So in this role play, you and I are chatting at a party, and I will start us out. Ready?
Okay.
So then she said, "It's just a hint of lemon." Ugh, didn't you love that scene on Succession?
Oh, no, I didn't see that. What happened?
Oh, cousin Greg uses sparkling water to wash out someone's eyes, and then everyone is mad because it had lemon in it, and he's like, "It's just a hint of lemon."
Oh, that's hilarious. I've got to see that show.
Oh, that worked out
Yeah.
perfectly. We were talking about Succession. It's all came full circle.
I sense an obsession here, Aubrey, on your
I am a
end.
little bit obsessed.
What I like about this role play, the way it flowed, is that
Mhm,
in the end, I brought this back to the show. I took it quickly out of that scene and the fact that I didn't know that scene
mhm.
and that awkwardness, and I came back to the show. Oh, I have to see it, and that's the connection moment, right?
Absolutely,
Getting out
right?
of the awkwardness as quickly as possible.
Yes, and then you've opened it up to go further for me to, like, tell you what I love about the show or
Right.
ask you what else you're watching, right? You have
Right.
helped deepen the connection, build the connection instead of letting that awkwardness linger.
100%. So should we go through it a little bit here? Where should we
Yes.
start?
Let's
Mhm.
do. So I first said something that was not very obviously like an inside joke or a movie quote or something. So it
Right.
kind of would make sense that you laughed, whether you kind of, figured maybe you had been in on a joke and you just don't really remember, whatever it is, you could just laugh, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I laughed here, but then you kind of called me out in the sense that, oh, didn't you love that scene? You're saying I just made a reference. Didn't you love that? And you're kind of assuming that
I'm kind of assuming,
uh,
"Oh, okay, we've both seen this scene. Awesome." Like,
right.
I might quote it, and then anybody who laughs, I'm like, "Sweet, my people, we've all seen this scene
Right.
on Succession," which, by the way, is a really hilarious scene. He has, like, wasabi in his eye, and the
Oh
guy
no.
uses lemon soda to try to wash it out.
That's hilarious.
But
Oh my
anyway,
gosh.
yes, this could totally happen, this situation, right? Because I'm trying to bring you in, create this bond like, "Oh, yes, we've both seen this scene. Didn't you love it?"
Yes. And of course, we can continue the conversation now about other shows that we have in common.
Yes.
Michelle and I have talked on this show before about how quoting scenes from shows can really be a real powerful connection moment. And
Absolutely. It's how you find
yeah,
what you have in common, or it's just
yes,
something
yes.
fun and interesting to talk about.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then where are we? So then I said, "No, I didn't see it. What happened?" Right?
And then I
So
just
good.
described the
Mhm.
scene and what was funny
Mhm.
about it, right? And that
Yep.
just your response there to be like, "Oh, no, I didn't see that. What happened?" So natural. You're not making me feel awkward. There's so many
Right.
things you could say that would make me feel badly about assuming you had seen the scene. And
Oh my
instead, you just,
gosh.
"Oh, no, I didn't. What happened?"
Yeah, the connection and responsibility here is on me and how I react, right? What did I say?
Right.
I said, "Oh, that's hilarious. I've got to see that show." Maybe next I say, "Oh, what else do you like to watch?" Right?
Totally.
Then I just immediately get out of that show because there's not much else we could say
Yeah, you haven't
there that
seen
we
it.
have in common. Then I find something we do have in common. That's connection, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Oh, so good.
Yes.
I'm so glad you guys now have these phrases that you can say depending on exactly how this goes, because there are lots of different scenarios where you need this vocabulary to be able to eliminate the awkwardness and continue that connection moment.
Yeah, and again, I love how human this moment is. We've all experienced this awkward moment, right? We've been kind of the victims of this moment in our own languages, our native languages, no question.
Yep.
So we can all kind of get on board with this. It's
Yes,
one of those awkward
absolutely.
moments
We've
of
all
life.
been there. So don't
We've
feel
all been
bad
there.
if you are
We've
too.
all been there. Yeah. Any final takeaway for our listeners there,
Yeah,
Aubrey?
I think
Anything
that's
else?
it, right? This happens to
Yeah.
all of us. It can
Yeah.
be awkward, but you do have the power to help alleviate the awkwardness with what you
Hmm.
say. So I'm glad you have all these phrases, but also don't let the potential of something like this happening stop you from connecting, right? Stop you from starting
Yes.
that conversation. It could happen to anybody. Dive in, start that conversation anyway.
It's true because there's no way we could see every episode
No,
of every TV show out there. We
never.
haven't been in every personal inside joke of everyone's life. It's just not
Yep.
possible.
Nope.
So that's why it's gonna happen. Then it's how you react. So good. So good.
Exactly. So
All
good.
right,
Awesome.
Aubrey. I'll talk to you on the next episode. Thanks for hanging out today.
Thank you. See you next time.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.